Hello, good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today we are going to be talking about submarines. They are, of course, available for most players to get in the random bundles that are truly random bundles. Over this update, they reset, I think, every 12 hours, and you have a chance to get them out of 4 bundles. But right now, you can get them, you can try them out. The Tier 6, Tier 8, and Tier 10 submarines in co-op and in ranked battles. Once ranked battles become available, I think not this week, but next week, you're free to try them out in co-op and such. And I have been doing that quite a bit over the past couple of days, and a little bit on stream last night. Now, we will be talking about that here in a minute, but I want to address something that I'm sure many of you may already be typing in the comments right now, and that is Little White Mouse's decision to leave the CC program. I got completely flooded with that question last night on stream. I'm sure many of you that did not catch the stream want to know my take on that, and I'm going to give it to you right here. And quite frankly, I figured this would potentially be the outcome of this situation, and if Wargaming did not fulfill their promise to do better to not only her but to the rest of the community. And I'm pretty surprised with how this went down, according to Little White Mouse. You can find her statement. I believe she attached it to her Yukon review. It's also on the subreddit as well, and I won't reread it, as I'm sure many of you have already read it. But the long version short is that she simply asked Wargaming, specifically, I believe Sub-Octavian, for 3 things. 2 things were something that could be pretty simply done over time, but the 3rd thing was that she wanted to have their camo they designed for the Yukon put into the game, and apparently she was refused that. Not only refused it, but she was belittled and kind of bullied in the CC Discord, apparently, from her explanation of events, being that she is being the bigger person. She's not handing out specifics on who said what, which is very admirable from her position. And at the end of her post, she said that she was leaving the CC program, which to Wargaming is an absolute travesty, because she is the best ship reviewer out of anybody that makes Wood Warships content. There is nothing overlooked in her reviews. There are very, very little, if any. I've actually never seen a mistake in her review, so I doubt she makes mistakes in her reviews. They are incredibly thorough, incredibly informative graphics are given in her reviews as well, and I often refer to them when I'm making a video for a ship. If I need to know something about the ship and I can't really remember what it's like in this regard or that regard, I go to her reviews to brush up on my knowledge of that ship, because I know whatever's in her review is 125% correct. So, from Wargaming's perspective, this should be a travesty that they've lost Little White Mouse as a CC. From Little White Mouse's perspective, I'd imagine it's quite liberating, because doing what she does to the level that she does for a company that treats her like this is ridiculous. They should be thanking her left, right, and center for what she does, and supporting her fully with what she does. She has done more for the community with her reviews than anybody. Than anybody, and she is the biggest loss from the CC program, in my opinion. And it's what happens when you treat your community contributors like crap. And we've seen rumors and such that other CCs are considering leaving the program. I was never part of the program, and I don't want to be part of the program. I didn't want to be a part of the program before all this crap started. I certainly don't want to be part of the program now that this is apparently the way that they get treated. You know, I do this for you guys. I don't do this because I want to be part of any program affiliated with Wargaming and get stuff for free to make videos and stuff. I do this for you. And she does too. And it seems that she's going to continue making reviews and such. I believe she set up a Patreon now to support her, which is very good for her. And I'm sure I took a quick look at it, and she's got plenty of support in there. So if you do want to go support her, go check out her Patreon. You can find the link to it in the subreddit article or on the forum post as well. Or I'm sure you can go to Patreon, just type in Little White Mouse, and you should be able to find her. But that's my take on that. It's an absolute travesty that it's come to this, but overall, I'm sure she's made the right decision. And yeah, I mean, the way they treated her, why would she stick around? It's not worth it for work to just go to waste of people that don't appreciate her for what she's done for the community and for the company as a whole. There's been many odd glitches and things that she's found on the various premium ships that Board Gaming has had to fix, and she's found it, provided evidence of it, very thorough evidence and documentation of it, and they've had to fix it because it's not what it's supposed to be. But yeah, that's my take on that situation. Anyway, on to the subs now. So over the past couple of days, I've been playing a lot of the tier 8 subs. I mean, we've all of us that have partaked in the submarine testing, we've all played to death the tier 6 submarines. I really want to get my hands on the tier 8 and the tier 10s. We actually had the tier 8s for this is actually the first time I've used the tier 8s. I think it's the first time they've been available to the general public for testing. But anyway, I played a lot of the tier 8s and a lot of the tier 10s over the past couple of days, and this video is basically just going to be going over what's changed and some of the big concerns about the subs now. So what has changed since the last iteration of testing? Well, they've tweaked the dive mechanics a bit. It takes much less time to dive now, but it's not the insta-dive like it was way back in the day where you could chill at 5.9 meters and then go to 6 meters. You can't do that anymore because you now have to set your depth very much like you do your speed. Which, you know, there's good to that and there's bad to that. The good to that is that it prevents the abusing of the threshold from surface to underwater, although the manually controlling of your depth was pretty cool, and I like that. But I was very disappointed that they removed that, but I understand because people could abuse the threshold from, you know, when you're considered surface to when you're considered underwater, which means that, you know, certain armaments can and can't hit you once you just quickly tap your dive button and you get to that depth. So I understand why they had to change it, but, you know, I kind of wish maybe they could have figured a way to work around it with the mechanics to get it to work, but they did try, and this is probably the best solution. So that's changed. Again, diving time's a little bit quicker, but again, not instantly. A lot of the visual, audio, and other graphical upgrades have been brought to this iteration of testing. I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be the final version of subs that we're going to get, with the exception of the torpedoes, and we'll get to that in a minute. But overall, the way they feel, the way they handle is pretty nice for the submarine player. Now, of course, the big thing's going to be, and from what I've seen by far in terms of handling and maneuverability, the main complaint is that the submarines are too fast. And if you're looking from a historical perspective, that is quite true. They are too fast. The Belial's top speed was 20 knots back in the day when she was up and running around, and in the game now with the speed flag she can get above 30. And yes, this is true. This is way faster than her historical self. However, you have to remember, most of the ships in game, I dare to say all of them, handle much quicker than their historical selves. If you were to put the historical maneuvering specs on every single ship in game, y'all'd be shocked if you didn't already know. You know, a lot of ships turn in under a kilometer. That's not how they work in real life. The ships accelerate way too quickly and decelerate way too quickly for real life ships. You know how long it takes a battleship to stop from 30 knots in real life? Miles and miles and miles. Not the couple of kilometers in game. Now, that being said, wargaming is weirdly finicky about speed. You know, they'll let the Normandy freaking rock and roll at, like, what's its top speed? Like 32, 33 knots? But God forbid the Colorado can go 22 knots. I don't know what their thing is with American battleships and speed, but heaven forbid the low-tier American battleships crossed their historical speed threshold. But just about every other ship in the game can. I mean, freaking Georgia rolling are at 43 knots. Like, really? Like, come on. So, I understand the complaint there, but from a gameplay perspective, they have to. They really have to, in my opinion. They have to go this fast, because they'd be utterly useless if not. They even addressed this when they were working on submarines very early on. They didn't really know how they could get them to work in-game with their historical speed. They tried spawning them in the front of the packs at spawn. They tried spawning them at the back. They tried spawning them midway in the middle of the map, but it just couldn't work because their top speed historically just didn't work well in game. If you guys didn't know, everything in this game is sped up tremendously. I think by like a factor of 3. Even though, it may say the ship's going this fast, or like the turrets rotate this fast. Like, yes, that's kind of how fast they turn, but it's at the game's own scale. Again, these ships were really slow in real life. War Thunder gives you a much better idea of how these ships really maneuvered in real life. Like, DDs in this game turn like they're F1 cars. That's not how it worked in real life, So that's my thing there. It's an arcade game. They can go that fast, and they kind of have to, again, in my opinion, to really keep up with the pace of the game. Okay, so the torpedoes. How do the torpedoes feel now? Well, this is, of course, the big thing, the big news. The torpedoes are like freaking 93-knot torps now if you build into them on the bow. And they do more damage. They up the damage. It's still way, way, way less than the old Tier 6 test submarines that could nuke a battleship with like 3 torpedoes. There was a clip from the original submarine test where I nuked, I think, a Warspite for like 50k with 3 torpedoes with the U-69. Okay, like they're still way under that. The maximum damage for these torpedoes is still around 8,000 damage. That's maximum damage. That's if they get a Citadel hit, which we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Okay, so that out the way. They still don't do that much damage, but they are crazy in terms of their speed. I think it was a bit much to just dump both of that on the both of those changes on the DDs on the submarines at once. It's a little bit much, in my opinion, to do that big of a change, right before they go into this final testing phase. That being said, the torpedoes do feel good playing them as a submarine. You get a decent bit of damage. And this is another thing too. You don't really get a lot of damage in co-op right now. The biggest pile of damage I had in playing submarines in co-op so far was just a little over 100,000 damage, which you probably watched that clip already, where I used my backup torpedo to take care of a Montana. And co-op is notorious for this. The games are very fast. In fact, I think you're watching at least 3 games right now to cover the length of this video. So you can't really pile on a lot of damage. But again, that being said, I've played a lot of co-op, especially with the new secondary changes. I've played in co-op a lot in Shaky and Mass, Georgia, Ohio, all the German battleships testing the new secondaries skills. And submarines are still on the low side in terms of damage. I get like 50, maybe 60,000 damage on average with the submarines when I play them in co-op, because the game's in so fast, the bots just int in. But with a surface ship, I can do a whole lot more damage. So they're not exactly raking in the damage. Now, again, this is just in co-op. This is just preliminary. When Rank comes out, I'll be playing them in there and seeing how they do there too. And 2, with co-op, it's a lot of 10 ship gains. I don't know why they can't find 4 more bots to populate the teams. So there's less ships. The match is over in like 5-6 minutes. It's not really a good indication for damage, but that is what I'm experiencing so far and what I'm going to tell you if you ask. So the torpedoes homing and the Citadel hits. And a lot of people are upset that these World War II era subs have homing torpedoes. Well, if you watch, you can see I get the double ping on most of the ships that I fire torpedoes on in the footage in the background. As you can see, most of the time, half the torpedoes still miss. The homing isn't like Ace Combat missiles. If you ever played Ace Combat missiles, you know those missiles are like crazy. They're like the Harriers missiles, the Shrams in War Thunder, where they just take a 90-degree left turn and hit the target. These torpedoes are nothing like that. It's very gentle, even with the double ping. If you point your bow toward it, you're probably going to dodge it. Now, if you do get a double ping, that does allow the torpedoes to get citadel hits. Now, you still have to hit the citadel of the ship to get a citadel hit. And at that point, you're only doing, again, 8,000 or like 7,900 damage to the ship per torpedo, because that's the torpedo's maximum damage. Now, if you manage to get all of your torpedoes to hit on a target, yes, that is a fair amount of damage that you're bringing in, but that means that whoever you're shooting at with these torpedoes ignores the warning they get when they get pinged. They don't see the torpedoes that are detected at 2 kilometers away from them. Now, yes, the torpedoes are going like freaking 90 knots. I understand that's very fast. But from 2 kilometers away, because that's all these torpedoes now have a minimum detection range of 1.9 kilometers, they don't hit the damage con button to get rid of the ping and then turn that 30 or 40k salvo into like a 15k salvo. That all that has to happen for these torpedoes to do a significant amount of damage to the ship that it's targeting. It can happen. It can happen. It can happen. But you do have a way to negate it. Again, you're alerted to the ping on your ship. It highlights the part of your ship that's being targeted by the ping. You can maneuver into it. You can pop your damage con to clear the ping, which is a weird mechanic, but that's how it is. And then their torpedoes are spotted from 2 kilometers away. Now, again, they're 90-knot torpedoes, and if you're in a battleship, yeah, that's going to suck. That's why I said, I think the speed or buff or damage buff, one of them should have came first, and then they should have maybe started tweaking the other one. I don't think it was a good idea to dump both of these buffs on these submarines instantly like that. They should have either raised the speed and kept the damage the same, or raised the damage and kept the speed the same. Honestly, they should have raised the damage first on the torpedoes and kept the speed the same. I think that would have been the way to go. And who knows, they may dial it back down to where it was beforehand and leave the damage where it's at. If they do that, I think they'll be perfect in terms of balance right now, in terms of the damage and the torpedoes at least. So overall, what's it like to play these submarines right now? It's quite fun, actually. I had a lot of fun playing these submarines. I know a lot of people have said it's boring and dull. I don't know what they're playing, but from my experience, it's a lot of fun. Now, it's co-op, so you're being rushed and such by bots, so that's probably leading into it a little bit. So we'll see what it's like when we finally get to play with other players in ranked battles, but I've been having a lot of fun. Fighting other subs underwater is still incredibly fun in this game. Before someone comments, submarines didn't really fight each other in World War II. Battleships only fought each other a handful of times in World War II. Like twice in the Pacific. I think 3 times in the Atlantic. Alright? Alright, okay. It's a video game. Things can happen. That's why it's a video game, so these things can happen. In my honest opinion, they are a lot of fun. They really are. It's nice having a third dimension to the game under the surface. Again, underwater worlds, sound effects, visual effects are top-notch. Art department's killing it here. Gameplay-wise, I do think the speed of the torpedoes needs to be dialed down a bit. I think having homing torps and the ability to citadel ships with torps is more than enough to make up for, only firing a handful of torps every like 40 or 30-ish seconds, depending upon what submarine you're in. Again, we've only been playing against bots, so not the best place to test it. I'm eager to see what it's like to play against other players now with this version of Submarines and ranked when that comes out. So last thing, ASW. Fighting against submarines. How does that go? Well, it's pretty darn effective, actually. Depth charges are scary. They're really scary. If you're not at, like, the bottom of your depth gauge when depth charges started being dropped on you in a sub, you're dead. You are freaking dead. If a DD sails over you and you're not crash diving, you're dead. Even if you crash dive, you're losing like half of your health at least. The only way to really survive depth charges is to dive deep. And at that point, you take much less damage, but you still take damage, and none of these subs have a heal. And they have so little health, too. At that depth, too, you can't see anything. Even if your team's spawning, you cannot see it when you dive deep, which is very good. Now, there is one thing. I do believe every single ship should have access to some type of ASW tool that can damage submarines. I know, like, German battleships have hydro, so Wargaming thinks they don't need to have ASW planes, and the sectors are very good for dealing with submarines, especially when they are dialed up. But I believe every single ship needs access to at least the ASW plane if they don't have the depth charges or any other future ASW equipment that they add into the game. It's a little silly to have, you know, a ship that has no way to counter another class when it's submerged. And I know usually late game submarines, their depth meter is pretty depleted. Again, with co-op, the game's in like 5 minutes, so there's not much to go on here. But from previous test sessions where the games lasted, most submarines didn't really have a lot of depth left late game, so they did have to surface and got utterly slaughtered. I mean, if you get a sub at the surface, oh my god, you are going to murder them if you have decent HE, or if they're in your range, or if you have secondaries or anything. They're so brittle, they're really frail, so when they get caught, they die really easily. But other than a couple of ships, well, not a couple, quite a few ships not having any ASW capabilities, I think they've toned it in pretty tightly, and I can imagine the freaking Dutch airstrikes being dropped on a submarine would probably ruin its day pretty fast. You're just sitting here thinking about that, and who knows what else they might add in the future. They could add in the Hedgehog launchers. They could add in ASW projectiles or missiles. Who knows? We'll see. But right now, just with the depth charges and the depth charge planes, I'm pretty confident that if you do have this equipment, you can easily counter submarines. I just wish every single ship had it, and I think every ship should have it. So that's just what I want to add in here at the end. So we'll see how that goes, and that's what I think about subs so far, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. On the way to 30,000 subs, and I can't thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.